Hello, everybody. This is the Cincinnati Herald Podcast. I'm your host, John Alexander Reese, digital editor of the Cincinnati Herald. If you don't know, the Cincinnati Herald has been around since 1955 and is the largest African American newspaper in the greater Cincinnati area. And now let me introduce my guests. The media consultant for the Cincinnati Herald, Andria Carter. How you doing today, Andria?
Hi, John. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Also like to introduce our circulation director of the Cincinnati Herald, Wade Lacey Sr. How you doing today, Wade?
Hi, John. As always, it's good to be here.
Good to have you. Then I also like to introduce our Herald intern, Suhana Sinha. How you doing today, Suhana?
Good evening, John. I'm doing just fine. I hope you're doing well too.
Yes, I am doing well. And I also like to introduce our other Herald intern, Maeve Hamlet. How you doing today, Maeve?
I'm good, John. Thank you for having me.
Glad you're here. And we have our special guest, sports expert Charles Farmer. How you doing today, Charles?
Doing wonderful. I'm not sure if that expert rings, but thank you.
Well, our main topic of the day is going to be talk about the Olympics. But before we dive into that, let's talk about some of the top news stories of the week. The Milwaukee Bucks beat the Phoenix Suns 105-98 in Game 6 to win their first NBA championship since 1971. Giannis Antetokounmpo capped one of the greatest NBA finals ever with 50 points, and the championship Milwaukee waited 50 years to win again. Antetokounmpo had 50 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 blocked shots as the Bucks beat the Suns to win the series 4-2. Wade, your thoughts on this historic moment for the Milwaukee Bucks?
What a dominant appearance that was. Just recently, I think it was either at the beginning of the year, before the season started, or right after the season started, he had the option to sign that big contract. I believe he did. The big hangover, they was wondering if they would be able to put people together with him so that they would actually have a chance to win the championship. And so, if I remember correctly, he went ahead and signed that big contract. And as it turns out, he already had the people around him that he needed to win that championship. I remember 1971 watching some of the playoffs when Kareem, as he was called back then, Lou Alcindor, teamed up with Mr. Robertson and Bobby Dandridge to win the NBA championship so long ago.
Charles, you want to dive into this? What are your thoughts on this subject?
Sure. Great moment in Milwaukee history. They've been waiting a long time. This season was kind of weird, and it takes nothing away from their win, but a lot of the so-called top teams suffered, had some of their key players suffer injuries. But regardless of the fact, a championship is that just that. And early on, people wondered, as Wade mentioned, whether or not Milwaukee had enough players or enough talent to win. And they were able to come through with Giannis serving as the key. But I also think we need to give some recognition to Drew Holiday, who they received in the trade, and then also the forward Middleton, because together as a team, they played very well and beat a very solid young Phoenix Suns team. And they had the will. Fans were really behind them. And it's a long time to wait for a championship, but it was kind of good to see someone different than the regular groups of teams that win all the time. But major win for them, great for the city, and it was refreshing.
Andrea, your thoughts on this story?
I thought it was a very exciting game. I'm not a big basketball fan, but just to watch the Milwaukee they played better, they moved quicker. I saw the Suns struggling a little bit here and there. I mean, they tried their best to come back and win, but at the end of the day, Milwaukee just had them on the run and they could never catch up.
Suhana, your thoughts on this story?
John, not cultured in the sports of basketball, I don't know many lingos or how to assess when I watch a good gameplay. Like I don't know how the terms to say things, but overall, what I saw was it was a great match. It didn't look like that Bucks have not won for a while. The defense and their offense was equally strong, I feel, and towards the last part, they were playing as aggressively as one could expect from a team to play. It was a They put really good shots, and it was a very, very interesting match. I was surprised to, at, at least the first half, I was not sure which team is going to win because they were coming on ties constantly. And finally, after the second half, the things become a little more clear, and it was a great match. I feel I should watch more basketball because if games are so good, I could not take my eyes off the screen. It was a good match.
Maeve, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat as Suhana. I'm not very cultured in basketball, but I didn't watch the game, but I did see their fans' reaction on Twitter, and they have a very supportive fan base. It was kind of interesting to see everybody go crazy about their big win. I'm proud of them, and yeah, it was awesome what they did.
Now, moving on to our second story. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell implored unvaccinated Americans Tuesday to take the COVID-19 shot, issuing a stark and grave warning of a repeat of last year's shutdowns if people refuse to protect themselves from the coronavirus. McConnell urged Americans to ignore the demonstratively bad advice coming from pundits and others against the vaccines. As caseload skyrockets, he noted that nearly all the new virus hospitalizations in the US are among people who have not been vaccinated. Andria, your thoughts on this story?
It sort of goes to the direness of what is happening now, which is being considered the fourth wave of the pandemic in the US. We need to have those who are not vaccinated get vaccinated because this variant is a little deadlier than the original one. Even though McConnell is saying it, I can't believe he's saying it, but anyway, but I think that just shows how important it is to ignore the naysayers. I mean, if you can, Joy Reid talked about Fox News, and she made a comment on Stephen Colbert show saying that, I bet you that the hosts of all the Fox News shows are vaccinated. And even though they are telling their loyal listeners to not get vaccinated, why do they want to kill their listeners? So I think the seriousness of the whole situation is everyone who was poo-pooing it before is now saying, no, you have to go get vaccinated. Don't believe us now. Don't ignore what we said before. So I think they've confused people a lot. So we'll see what happens.
Wade, your thoughts on this story?
Nothing too much on this. You know my stance on that. But I will say that when you take Trump out the picture, people seem to speak their true mind. And so that's all I've got to say.
Suhana, your thoughts on this story?
John, I think it is very essential that right now Americans get vaccinated, and those people who didn't get vaccination should go and seek it out, because we are not like in a time where once this circumstance has arisen, we can take our own time to settle it down. Like it is valiantly spreading around the whole population of this world, and now that in August we are seeing that there will be a huge number of incoming students internationally. We don't want, I think this is what the aim is, that we don't want the population to feel this imbalance, and a fourth wave gets started at an exponential rate. Though a lot of countries around the world over the year has taken their own time and measures to get some stability in the situation, especially United States. And by 4th of July, they were not able to match the mark that they set, but they still vaccinated a significant amount of people. But now, more than a show of the circumstances, that when a lot of international students will come, and they're, despite all the precautions and despite whatever people are trying to do to keep themselves safe, there's already a spread of Delta virus and other viruses in the population, and mingling with more people and new faces can cause this whole situation to become a little more severe. So I think for the sake of their own safety in the future, because you won't be able to resist meeting other people. From fall, everything is opening again. So it is just safer to get vaccinated this time and not take your chances, or provide a risk to people who are coming in and being a risk to people who are already vaccinated. So don't put your life on thread, and get vaccinated. That's what I would like to tell population.
Maeve, your thoughts on this story?
I'm really glad he finally took this take, because he does have a really strong group of people who kind of listen to every word he says and take it with seriousness. And I'm glad he's coming around to terms with how serious this Delta variant is. We've seen over the past few months how crucial it's hit other countries and how deadly this strain is. And I think if people don't take this into consideration, I think we have a really scary fall and winter coming ahead for us. That's just my personal opinion. I think we need to stop, kind of acting like COVID is over, and really go get vaccinated and, think about the kids too who aren't able to get vaccinated. That's my biggest thought and worry in my mind, is these kids that are going back to school and people who aren't really taking that serious. We've seen the effects this new variant has on children too. It's not just the elderly anymore. So I think this is a good thing that he's outwardly spoken that the vaccine is safe and that it's good to go get it.
Moving on to our next story. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon and the richest man in the world, launched into space on Tuesday morning atop a rocket built by his space exploration company, Blue Origin. The capsule carrying Bezos, his brother Mark, longtime aviation specialist Wally Funk, and Blue Origin's first space tourism customer, Oliver Damon, traveled 66.5 miles above the Earth's surface. Moments after returning from a brief trip to space on Tuesday, Bezos announced he was giving away $200 million in charitable donations. During that press conference, he formally introduced the Courage and Civility Award and its first two winners, CNN political analyst Van Jones and celebrity chef Jose Andres. Bezos said Jones and Andres were chosen as the first two winners of the award because they are leaders who aim high, pursue solutions with courage, and always do so with civility. He added that each man would be given a $100 million prize with no strings attached, though the intended use of the funds is for charitable purposes. Andria, your thoughts on this shocking news?
I think it's wonderful that we saw the success of a new age of space exploration. Hopefully, eventually, by the common man. At least it's going to be an interesting, ride into space and come back to Earth. But I think also the charitable donation to both these two men are unique and interesting, but both play an important role in saving the planet. Van Jones, before CNN, the political, he's an environmentalist, and he has an environmental company. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does with the money and how it's going to play out in terms of the next steps of what he's going to do, because he's been a staunch supporter of improving environmental awareness within the African American, well, I should say within the Black and Brown communities. The chef, I forgot what his name is.
It's Jose.
You just said his name.
Yeah, Jose Andres.
Chef Andres. He has been feeding the world for a while. He's a believer in the farm to market, the farm to table use of food, especially grown food, but also healthy food, but sharing it with the world and feeding the world. And his initiative of feeding the hungry has been seen across the world, and he's made great strides. And I think we're going to see more from him with this money. And I think it's a wonderful surprise that Jeff Bezos is so generous, but then again, he is worth $20 billion. So it's going to be interesting to see what else he does with his money down the road.
Wade, your thoughts on this story?
Very interesting that they are now allowing the private citizens to go out in space. Reminds me a little of the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and going up to Mars and everything, and
yes,
vacation trips and everything planned to go up there and have a good time. But maybe now they'll let me take my jetpack and ride it around. Back in the early '60s, they came on with the specials about riding in your jetpacks in the future and riding around, just having a good old time. And then they came out with the series Lost in Space, and whenever they was on a planet and they needed to get to the other side of the planet without getting in the spaceship, he would put his jetpack on and he'd rise up there and ride around and all that good stuff. So maybe I have a chance with my jetpack, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Suhana, your thoughts on this story?
John, I think it's a great initiative and very exciting endeavor that space travel is getting more and more possible in the coming future. At the same time, I'm not blown away by Jeff Bezos' donation for charitable purposes. For a while now, in the whole lot of citizens have been talking about the taxes the millionaires pay and the wage that is provided to people, how much increment has been there, and what is the care that has been provided by these millionaires to their employees. So I am glad that we are seeing space travel happening, and I'm sure there are people who are over the moon over this news. But as I don't see myself leaving Earth anytime soon, unless, of course, opportunity comes. But I don't see myself currently leaving the Earth off. And I'm quite concerned with the earthly matters that surround us. Are the taxes being made done? Or are the employees getting fair wage? For a while, there has been talk about equal wage around the world. But how is Amazon doing in all those humanitarian aspects? Where are their investments? And what is how much emission does the product release? There's a lot of aspects that need to be drilled in the history of Jeff Bezos' work. I'm sure space travel is a very shiny trophy in this whole set of achievements. Congratulations to him and his team for pulling this off. But I don't think unless it reaches to a more affordable population, it's anything big deal for me. Millionaires have been indulging in a lot of whims for over generations now. If this is a millionaire whim or it's a future for humanity, it's still something we are yet to figure out.
Maeve, your thoughts on this story?
I don't have too many personal thoughts on Jeff Bezos other than I know he's not painted as the most charitable guy, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding Amazon's working condition and the wages that they get paid for what they go through. But that I hope this image can change for him, and I hope he's starting to realize the power that he holds with the billions of dollars that he has. I think you said $20 million. That's a lot of money for the regular person, but to him that's kind of pocket change. So I hope he can change the image for himself and solve a lot of issues because he does have the power to do so.
And moving on to our next story. Comments made by a guest speaker at a local megachurch during a sermon Sunday, July 18th, has angered members of the LGBTQIA plus community. David Mahan, the director of policy with Center for Christian Virtue, made homophobic and transphobic comments in front of the congregation at Crossroads Church in Oakley. Mahan said, "If you have a child struggling with gender dysphoria and you go to a clinic in this area, eventually you'll get down to brass tacks on it if you want a dead daughter or a live son." He later said that in current popular culture, people who are LGBTQ plus never get the help they deserve. Mahan said that he loved the congregation and that he simply wanted to help kids steer away from suicide due to gender dysmorphia. Andria, what are your thoughts on this story?
How dare he, in front of a congregation, make those comments knowing that in the audience are LGBTQ folks because of their liberation, their liberal views and openness. I'm surprised they didn't burn down the stage to get him off as fast as possible. I think it's horrible for him to say that. And, I wish I know more about it, but it's just, I can't believe someone would say that, especially in a church.
Suhana, what are your thoughts about this story?
John, when I read about this news, I was so confused because I first of all didn't even understand what the pastor was trying to say, and that in no way dismisses what is the repercussion of his words. But if he had any malice in what he was trying to say, my question is why? How do you do this? Like, it's so confusing. It's in 21st, we are in 21st century, and we are more or less trying to live with each other and tolerating each other's opinions and being minimum respectful at least. So I it confuses me why would a church go out of their way, accumulate people and people of a certain group and say things that are hurtful to them. I I'm truly confused. I believe this is wrong, but I don't know what to say on it further than this is so easily excusable. I heard the church just said, "I'm so sorry," more or less like, "I'm so sorry you got hurt." Um, I think people in a bigger scale get away with saying a lot of things, quite disrespectful to the community. But this is just one of those weird things that make me as a person uncomfortable. And I hope other guests have some better opinion on this situation. But I'm so confused about why would anybody try something like this out of nowhere.
Maeve, your thoughts on this story?
When I read this story, to tell you I was completely shocked is an understatement. To me, like, Crossroads has always been a very accepting and open church. I mean, they have one of their largest churches up in Clifton, right next to a college campus. So, I mean, they're always on campus. They're very accepting and very nice people from everybody I've ever met there on campus. And I just can't imagine. There had to have been at least, a few people in the LGBTQ plus community in the audience or parents of those. And I just can't imagine sitting in church and hearing that. I'm sure, because I think he was a guest speaker, as you said, I'm sure the people at Crossroads, the administration there, had to have been caught off guard or shocked by those words. So I don't know. I don't see Crossroads as homophobic by any means, but that was very, very shocking, I guess is the word to say.
That's it for the main news topics of the week. And now let's go into our main topic of the week, which focuses on the Olympics. And I'll hand it over to our circulation director, Wade Lacey Sr. So go ahead, Wade.
Thank you, John. We have a special guest tonight, Mr. Charles Farmer, and he's going to give us some insight on this week's and the next couple of weeks Olympics. And as we go forward with this, Charles, if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing for the last few years.
Okay, I will definitely appreciate that. My background is for quite some time. I've served as the sports editor and assistant managing editor for the Columbus Post newspaper, which is African-American publication when it was in circulation. I did that for about between 15 and 17 years as a full-time writer and then also as part-time. So that was very interesting to me because it created a very great insight for myself in journalism. It also created lots of great opportunities. Since that time, I've moved forward. I'm doing into marketing for nonprofits, small business, and then also for some corporations. Along with that, so I've been able to take my journalism background along with some public relations know-how, going to graduate school with that, and being able to share that out, share that a little bit. So that's what I've been doing lately. Also, still too, doing some podcasts, sports wise, with the Goon Squad Sports podcast with a few friends, and then also doing a couple boxing shows. So that's it in a nutshell, if you will.
Okay, Charles, well, let's jump right into it and go with one of the big controversial questions right away. With the pandemic and all that's going on, should they actually have the Olympics in Tokyo right now?
Wow. I think that depends on your audience, right? To the average person, they probably would say no. I'm on the mindset that if things are safe, it's kind of hard for them not to have it. We must keep in mind that the Olympics were supposed to take place last year in 2020, but the Olympics were postponed because of COVID. And now there's going to be no fans, no spectators. You're going to have empty venues. So all of the signs would say you shouldn't have it. But the other part of me says, I'm really concerned when you think about the athletes. There are more than 10,000 athletes that plan on participating in the Olympic Games in Tokyo. And for a lot of these athletes, this is how they make their money. This is how they live. This is where they make their most money because of the contracts, the endorsements. If they win medals, gold, silver, or bronze, what have you, this is how they make their money. And they would probably be the ones who would kind of fight not being able to participate. So I guess I'm kind of on the fence there, but I think really it's about the health first and foremost. But then again, also it's on the athletes to participate.
Excellent, excellent answer there. Well, Charles, this kind of goes full circle for me that the Olympics here in 2021 now is being held in Tokyo. My first inkling of the Olympics go all the way back to 1964. That's when it first registered in my mind. And ever since then, it's been a big part of my life with the different sports heroes. Back in 1964, we were thrilled to watch Bob Hayes and Wyoming Tyus, our sprinters in the 100 meters for the United States, bringing home the gold. Especially for me as a swimmer, we had Don Schulander back then, who won 4 gold medals in that Olympics in Tokyo. What does the Olympics mean to you?
Well, growing up, the Olympics was always something that was special because we were taught about having pride in your country. And it wasn't so much about hating other countries, but it was more or less a pride thing. And this was an opportunity, I think, for myself, being able to watch some of the greatest athletes in time participate and show how great they were in their own sport. Because we know that the Olympics only takes place normally every 4 years. And there have been some great performances. I know I was a little young to understand about the 1968 Olympics, but with all of the controversies and whatnot, when you just think about the great individuals like John Carlos and Tommy Smith, what they had to go through trying to just be great athletes and still representing themselves as African Americans in this country and win a lot of ways. You also thought about George Foreman and boxing and so many other people. And I think Olympics also too, from the standpoint of when I think about Jesse Owens and what he went through and him having the audacity to go to Germany and not just face a very dangerous individual considered by many in the world and look him directly in his eye and destroy him and his athletes in that setting. That always set the precedent for the Olympics for me, which was a little bit harsh. But then over the years, we've seen some great performances. 1976, we think about the great Olympic team, think about Mark Spitz. I could go on and on, but I think just that presence of being able to see great athletes do what they do and surpass so many great things. We think about Daytonian Edwin Moses and so many other great sprinters, boxers, swimmers that put it on the line, even to the point of weightlifting. It was a great opportunity for a lot of athletes who really did not have the opportunity to be seen to receive their just due and also had the ability to shine in front of the world.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed. You mentioned some of the different athletes through the years, Jesse Owens and John Smith and Carlos. It also makes me think of our Native American athlete that's a superstar back then. Not many people remember him now, but Jim Thorpe.
Yes.
Was a great Olympian for us back in the day and everything. And we've had many others over the years. Charles, but do you have a favorite sport when it comes to the Olympics?
I'm pretty prone. I used to love boxing, but now I'm largely into track and field. But the beauty about this, and as I was doing research for this particular segment, I'm open to a lot of different things because that's what it is about the Olympics. I remember watching the Winter Olympics and thinking about if I was in the Winter Olympics, what sport would I participate in? And I was just fascinated by things like the luge. I'm like, how can you do that with so much speed? And I loved to ride sleds back in the day. So I'm saying to myself, I bet you that would be crazy. But then I learned how fast it was. I was like, that probably wouldn't be a great sport for me. But to answer your question, track and field, women's gymnastics, definitely for sure. I think about way back into the point, I think it was 76 with Nadia Comaneci in the perfect 10s. That was just amazing. Mark Spitz, swimming, of course. And there are so many others, but I think those are the two pretty much a track and field and gymnastics.
Well, Charles, what do you think about the conversation that's been Naomi Osaka? She had her incidents at the French Open. She sat out the Wimbledon, but she is representing Tokyo, and she got a little backlash for some of the people of color because she was representing Tokyo. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll say this. I mean, a lot of people say the same thing about Tiger Woods and all of that, what he chose to do. But when you think about Naomi's choice and what she's been through with the mental health and things like that too, you have to let an individual be themselves, correct? And sometimes certain individuals and certain groups want to grab one to somebody because they're successful, but you have to let the person be. And she had a lot going on, and it's her choice who she wants to represent. And I think because we know them and we feel like we know these individuals because we see them all the time, we feel like some of the fans feel like they almost have a part of them, like they own them in a sense, like there's some ownership. But these are individuals, and despite the fact of them being top athletes with great caliber of being a great caliber athlete, they're still people. And I think that's what we miss sometimes. We expect certain things, but I don't think that you can really fault her for the choice that she made. She's still an individual, and that was her choice.
Absolutely. Charles, before we go into some of the individual athletes, let's talk about some of the dominance of particular countries. And for instance, if you look at China in table tennis, they seem to win not only the gold, but the silver also each year, in not only the men's singles, but the women's singles, the women's doubles, the mixed doubles. Is there anybody close to that type of dominance in any of the other sports?
I know that when we think about the long distance runs, right? You also think about some of the European countries, but we also think about some of the African nations where their athletes literally just dominate. It goes to the point where you think about the African nations where their runners come over and they dominate a lot of the marathons. And a lot of people, not saying that the United States and other countries don't have high quality, high caliber athletes, but there's something about it. And I don't want to throw that old phrase, there's something in the water. That's not true. It's about the way that they train or the way that these individuals are able to be consistent. And I think that's what really sets them apart from anything. And I think that's what we're surprised by, because when you think about the Usain Bolts of the world, the Michael Johnsons of the 200-meter dash, when you have people that are just able to do it, even with Michael Phelps, people are able to do it over such a long period of time and consistency, it just kind of blows you away because there's always some new athletes coming to trying to unseat them.
Okay, well let's dive into some of the athletes now that are. Well, before I go into any individual athletes, what storylines do you see coming ahead for this next 2 weeks?
And I don't want to get too far ahead, but I think one of the main storylines that I think people need to pay attention to, if you're not familiar, is the women's 400-meter hurdles. And the reason why I say that is because you have two dominant young ladies from America that are neck and neck after one another. And along with the rest of the individuals in the field should be for a great race in the prelims and then also in the finals. And I'm talking about Sydney McLaughlin, who set a world record in the Olympic trials, 51.9. She was the first woman to break the 52-second mark in that particular event. This is her second Olympics. She was 16 the first time she ran in her first Olympics. And then, of course, she defeated Daila Muhammad, who at the time was the Olympic champion before in the 400-meter hurdle. So that group alone is going to be one of the top events that you want to keep your eye on. Even if you're not a big track and field fan or not really familiar with it, I guarantee you will not be disappointed, because these ladies come to run, and they're definitely both premier athletes along with the rest of the group.
Yes, I agree. Well, let's sticking with the hurdles. On the women's side, there's in the 100-meter hurdles, Kenny Harrison. She won the trial. I remember in 2016 she did not make it to the Olympics, and then 2 weeks later she set the world record. So it was good to see her come through the trials. Do you think she'll go ahead and win the gold this time?
I want to say yes, but the only thing about that is when you almost designate somebody to win, it's very difficult because on that stage anything can happen. Anything can happen. It can be an injury. It can be a step here or there. So we can say that perhaps she's the prohibitive favorite, if you will. But on that night or those days of competing, you already know this because you mentioned about one of your favorite sports. It can just be inches or timing or anything. It can just be a slip that can make a difference. So I prefer to say prohibitive favorite than I would say almost guarantee that person is going to win.
What about the men's side? Usually when you think of the 100 meters and the 200 meters and you take out Usain Bolt, but usually the U.S. is real tough in those categories. And we got Ronnie Baker and Noah Lau representing us this year, but I just don't feel that confident that I normally would feel in those races. What about you?
Yeah, well, I can understand that. I mean, you think about Noah Lau, as you mentioned. In fact, Usain Bolt is one of the guys that picked him and thinks he should win. But he posted a world best 19.74 while qualifying for Tokyo. It's his first Olympics, and that might be the one thing that caveat that may raise some eyebrows for other individuals. But one individual I think that we should look at too, you mentioned about the 100 and the 200 meter dash, is Trayvon Bromell. And right now, I think he might be considered a favorite to win the dash. He ran the 9.77 100 meters this year, the fastest this year. Interesting story for him is because in the 2016 Olympics, he tore his Achilles in the 4x1 meter relay. And since that time, he's had 2 Achilles surgeries, and he won the silver in the 400 meters. So you think about 2 surgeries, he's chomping at the bit for another opportunity to try to run in the Olympics. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, and we should keep an eye out on him.
What about Gabby Thomas in the 200 for the women? She ended up running the fastest 200 times ever since FloJo. What do you think about that?
No, I think it's amazing because to put the time in the way that she did. She's 24 years old, out of Atlanta. It says that she's ready. But again, the question is, when the lights come on, can you get it done? And people are just affected by a lot of different things. So we hope that she's able to do what she did and definitely duplicate that effort. But when the lights come on, we just don't know. It's scary, but it's the beauty of it at the same time, because some people are big time performers. Others are ones that say they are, think they are, but they sometimes have issues mentally that trap them and don't allow them to compete the way they normally would.
Well, Charles, one of the storylines that has my attention is the young girl, I believe her name is 18 Mo, running the 800 for us. She also has the 400 speed. I know that they wanted her to run the 800 because they think that she's a shoe-in for that. Like you said, we'll see when it happens. But she didn't run the 400, which I hope that they reward her at least on the relays because she ran a 48-6 split in the NCAA, I believe it was just a couple of months ago. Any thoughts on her?
Yeah, I think that it's a unique situation, and whoever's making that those decisions, particularly for the relays, it's going to be very difficult because somebody with that kind of talent, you would think that you would want her to stick with her specialty, right? And even if she's really a person that can run another event, you want to see her in her specialty. And then if she can bring more points to the team, why not let her run? You also mentioned about the 400, 4x4 perhaps, 4x4 relay for women. I was watching the video the other day, and I want to know who the person is going to make that decision, because I watched a 4x4 meter 4x4 meter relay with Sydney McLaughlin and Dalia Muhammad, and I said, "Oh my goodness, these are hurlers. What are they doing?" They burned the track up, and I'm saying to myself, "This is impressive." So I would love to see them on that team. And you mentioned some other individuals too, but that's going to be a very tough situation, very difficult situation to come up with who's going to run. But there's so much talent on the American track teams between the men and women. It's definitely going to be interesting to see who comes out.
Well, let's step aside from the track and field for a second, and we're going to wrap it up in a few minutes. But let's go to basketball. Both the men's and the women's team lost at least one game leading up to the Olympics. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the men's team, it's all about chemistry. You have some of the top players that are not there this time. I think Coach Popovich is going to have to find a way to bring those together. The one caveat that really helps them is the fact that you're getting 3 top players that are just coming out the NBA championships and will be available soon. And that's, of course, the 2 Milwaukee Bucks players with Holiday, and then also Middleton, and then also you receive from the Phoenix Suns, the guard as well. So I think that's going to help them dramatically. The women, I think they're set. I think they just need to play more and play more to gain more chemistry. But I will say this, it's very dangerous because even though I'm glad to see Dawn Staley get an opportunity to lead that team, there's a lot of controversy going on with a lot of the top players not getting able to be able to play. Kind of reminds you of the time when they shut out Candace Parker for 2016 as if she's not one of the top players in the country, but they chose to go another way. There's a lot of controversy around that, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, as we're closing out, I would just want to mention some other players and participants. You know, we have Simone Biles in gymnastics. We have Simone Manuel in swimming. We have Coco Gauff and Madison Keys on the women's side of tennis, and Francis Tiafoe on the men's side. Give us your last thoughts as we wind this down on the Olympics as a whole.
No doubt. I just want to say real quick some other people that I think it'd be important to look at. The controversial but yet steady Gwen Berry in the hammer throw. She's something else, but she's a very talented individual. Women's boxing, Rashida Ellis, Naomi Graham, and also O'Shea Jones. Women's rugby, top scorer Naya Tapper and Cheetah Imba. USA has a great challenge to win, great chance to win the gold. Women's soccer, Crystal Dunn, Adrian French. Women's softball, Michelle Moultrie. Women's swimming, Natalie Hines, 27 years old, her Olympic debut. And then last but not least, in women's water polo, Ashley Johnson. She's the first African-American woman to make that team.
Oh, very informative, Charles. I am so happy that we were able to get you on tonight, and I'll turn it back over to John.
Indeed, that was a very fascinating, very great conversation. Thank you so much, Charles, for coming on and talking about the Olympics. Do you have any social media handles or anything so where people can follow you?
Yeah, definitely. On Facebook, we have the Reality of Sports. Also, there's a realitysports.com. Also, a Goon Squad Sports Radio as well. But I also have, like I said, the main thing is my website, the Reality of Sports.
All right, that's great. And I want to thank Andria and Wade, Suhana, and Maeve for coming on and giving, your guys' thoughts on this week's stories. So thank you guys. And make sure to check out the stories we talked about today on our website at www.thecincinnatiherald.com. You can also check out our print edition, which is sold at your local Kroger, UDF, Walgreens, Joseph Beth Booksellers, and at select service stations. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, and TuneIn Radio. Just search for the Cincinnati Herald Podcast. Make sure to follow us on Facebook at the Cincinnati Herald. Follow us at Cincy Herald on Twitter and Instagram. And follow us on YouTube. Just search for the Herald TV. I'm John Alexander Reese, digital editor of the Cincinnati Herald, and have a good day.